Hi and welcome to this video. This video is going to be a little bit different than the typical video that I have posted on my YouTube channel, and maybe I'll do more like this in the future. But what you're watching today is basically a practice session that I had just randomly one night, and I decided to film it because I think that it's interesting to share something other than a finished piece, or rather a piece that I've decided to paint and sort of have an idea of what I'm going to do, and then share it on YouTube. So that's the typical formula for sharing an art video on YouTube. At least that's the way I see it. But I don't see often videos that are messy and imperfect and, to I guess, in very simplistic terms, ugly. And I don't know if I would say that this is a very ugly painting, but it's definitely messy. It's unplanned, and this is just what my practice session ended up looking like. And it's a lot of me experimenting and testing out things and just playing around. So you can see that it might look like I'm starting out by doing a well composed painting, but as I keep going, you'll see that it's just me testing out different techniques and seeing what I like doing. And so I actually don't even really know what I'm going to say in this YouTube video. I'm at this point recording this voiceover over the time lapse that I'm just watching myself paint. And this isn't instructional because I don't have really anything to teach, because this is me learning on my own. But I can share with you my thoughts and my experience. And so that's what I'm going to do in this video, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. And if not, then you can mute it and you can just watch my messy practice session, or you can just stop watching. So I guess I'll just talk about first why I'm painting flowers. So flowers are something that I don't paint very often, and I think it might be because I never found a way that I truly enjoyed painting them. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of flowers on Instagram, and I believe that they are very trending is the best way for me to describe it. So I don't think that they'll ever go away, because obviously flowers are so beautiful and people love looking at them and people love painting them. But there is a specific style, at least in the circles that I am in the community that I'm in, there's a certain style of florals that is shared a lot and that I get exposed to personally. And while I love looking at them, I don't actually enjoy painting in that style, which is really interesting to me. And maybe it was a little bit confusing for me, because when I first started trying to paint flowers, it was when I first started doing watercolors. And I only knew how to mimic what other people were doing because I enjoyed looking at that style, and because I admired it, the next most logical step was to try and do it myself. And then I found that when I tried doing it myself, I didn't really enjoy the process, and so I stopped painting flowers and I moved on to other subjects. And flowers are something that I've always wanted to come back to. And there's a part of me that likes the challenge and wonders if I could succeed at painting flowers in that style, because I enjoy it and I admire it so much. But I think what I've learned and what I've accepted as I've painted more and more is that while I can admire and enjoy and love seeing other people paint in that style, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the style that I enjoy the most. And so what I'm doing here is, because I've been away from painting flowers for so long, I am returning back to that style that I tried to paint in, that is mimicking a very popular style on Instagram, and I'm just revisiting it to see how it feels and how I feel when I try to paint in that style. So this is me just playing around, really. And in the process of doing these first two sheets, so the sheet that you saw first and the second one, I realized that I still don't love it. And the thing that I have to admit to myself is that I know and I have the confidence that if I practiced enough, and this goes for anybody that's watching this, if we practice enough at anything, if we repeatedly put in the time and the effort, we will get better at doing what it is we want to do. So, what I'm trying to say is if I wanted to master this style of loose watercolor flower, then I could do it. And I don't say that to sound egotistical because I really believe anybody can do it, but it just takes time, effort, and practice. And I think I decided after these first two sheets that I really just don't enjoy painting in this style, even though I like looking at it. And so you can see that I tried something a little bit different on that first sheet. And it was at the very end of that first sheet, and I started applying a bunch of water because I really like working wet on wet, and I'm very interested in allowing the water to flow a lot. Like I'm painting with wet wet on wet sort of techniques here where I'm allowing the paint to bleed and blend into each other, but it's still more controlled than working very loose, I guess, is the best way for me to describe it. And so I was just curious in trying to do even looser painting. And I paint very wet on wet usually and very loose when I'm doing other subjects. So why not flowers too, right? And so I think that for me, these first two sheets were truly just a like dipping my toe back into the water sort of feeling. Like, let me just get the feel of the brush and look at a couple of photos of flowers and see if I can capture the shapes and understand the anatomy of how they're built. In order to abstract them to a certain point where I can understand what strokes to use when I'm painting in order to capture the essence of a petal, because I know that I'm not going to be painting in a very realistic way. And so those were these first two sheets. And so here we are back at the first sheet where I said I had put a lot of wet on wet paper, wet on wet onto my paper, or water onto my paper, and then I am coming back and I'm layering over that. So it is, to me, it feels more loose, and this is a technique that I've been really investigating more recently, and I love the look of it, and so I'm exploring here. So you can see I sort of in some ways messed up my sheet in order to try this out, but after doing this little section I realized, oh, that's really fun and that's what I want to do. And so I found a YouTube tutorial, which I'll link here for you, and this artist had a very loose style and it just looked a lot more like something that I would have fun painting. So I followed her YouTube video. And so I will, like I said, I'll link it here for you and I'll also link it in the description, but I really loved this style. And so I just wanted to give it a try. And I was very, very loose with this. I didn't feel like I needed to get it perfect. So I just used her tutorial and her image sort of as a loose reference, and I just went for it. And I have to say that I had a lot more fun painting this painting than I did the other ones. And so I'm really excited to explore more florals loosely using this sort of look, and adapting it and making it really my own. I have a lot of ideas now after doing this, and this is just a testament to the fact that that is why practice sessions and creating things that are quote unquote ugly or things that you don't love, and why that's so important. And so I went through two sheets of painting flowers, not really liking it, but just trying it and getting a feel for what it's like to paint them again, and then doing a couple of experiments, even just that tiny little section of the paper where I experimented with more wet on wet painting. And it wasn't even with flowers, it was just with that leaf part. That gave me the feeling that I wanted when I was painting. And so that led me to find a loose watercolor tutorial for flowers, and it led me to find this tutorial, and then it led me to experimenting with trying to paint from this tutorial. So that's what I think is so beautiful about practice sessions. And they can be messy and they can be ugly, and you can definitely, in some ways people would say I wasted paper, but after painting for this long, I just feel like nothing is a waste. And yes, I used good paper. I used Arches paper, and I wasn't afraid. And I feel like the fact that I used good paper that I normally would paint on allows me to get used to the paper too. So there's so many things that I'm learning through these practice sessions. And I'm going to say that even this final loose painting, there were a lot of mistakes. You can see that I'm trying to correct mistakes right now. I was working when it was way too wet. This is also a learning experience that I realize that every time I paint, I get reminded of something or I learn something new. And this is a gentle reminder that I still need to be more patient. I love working wet on wet, but I also realized that with wet on wet, I need to either use a blow dryer or I need to be patient and I need to wait for that first layer to dry. Otherwise, everything else is just going to look not great. And so like I said, even this painting is not, to me, in my mind, is not the prettiest painting. It's not the type of final painting that I would say is a great piece of work. Obviously, this is painted from a tutorial, so I can't even say really it's my work, but I feel like this is going to allow me to move forward in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do if I just sat down and had a preconceived idea of what I wanted to do and then tried to execute it. I think that sitting down and letting ourselves play and letting ourselves create things that aren't good looking is really important. And that's the essence of what I'm really doing here. And so as I was filming this, actually, my phone ran out of storage, so I can't even show you the whole process of me finishing this painting, but I'll definitely show you what it looked like in the end as a photograph. And so I hope that this video was a little bit helpful and that you took something away from it, or that it inspires you to go and have a messy practice session where you just follow your instincts and your inspiration and paint what you feel like painting. And if something doesn't feel right, then not to force it, and then to let what makes you happy as you're painting lead you forward. So I hope that this was helpful again. And if it was, I would love to know, because I don't mind recording these messy practice sessions and sharing them. So it's something that I might do more of here on my YouTube channel. It would really help me if you let me know in the comments whether or not you want to see more videos like this. So until then, I guess I will see you in the next video, and I hope that you have fun at your next painting session.